I'm Justin Champion. I'm Professor of the History of Early Modern Ideas at Royal Holloway. I've been here probably far too long for my own good and definitely for the students' good. My area of expertise is early modern England, but with a European focus as well. And in particular, I'm interested in ideas, both political and religious ideas. And the thing that's always driven me right from the start of being an undergraduate was thinking about why we obey people. Why do we obey kings or governments? And then even more importantly, why do we believe in God, or why do we believe in priests? So those very, very simple questions have driven the sorts of research that I'm interested in. So I've written books about irreligion, heterodoxy, republicanism in the 17th and 18th centuries. And very much those sort of angles, history of ideas, history of culture, looking at visual images, looking at texts, very much those angles drive the sorts of teaching I do. So whether it's first year course, where we do a wonderful course, the best one in the college, I think, which looks at the history of political ideas, sort of from a modern perspective. You know, why do we think democracy is right? Why is consent an important sort of political act? So we go all the way back to Plato, to the ancient Greeks, and we think through those sets of arguments about institutions, democracy, voting, citizenship, and then the more interesting ones that we get onto in the 17th and 18th century, theories of resistance. When is it right to resist tyrants? When is it good to kill kings? Now, a lot of first years get anxious about that because we don't bother reading boring historians. We go back to the texts. And within 2 weeks, they're perfectly comfortable and even excited by encountering these other minds. And I take that sort of theme of thinking ourselves historically into other people's ideas and attitudes into the second and third year courses. So I'm notorious as somebody who thinks we shouldn't have a monarchy because it corrupts in some sense our citizenship today. So the new course I'm teaching, rebranded, is called Killing the Kings, which is all about the first great political trial in European history, the trial and execution of Charles I, who was dispatched by his head being separated from his body January the 30th, 1649. At the end of that century, we got rid of another king. So that course, which looks at the long 17th century into the accession of the Hanoverian monarchy, that course is about how England became modern, how it shed, if you like, the mystery of medieval kingship and modern attitudes to government, to finance, to the economy, to science were created in the 17th century. And finally, in my undergraduate special course, the final third year one, where we spend an entire 2 terms sort of immersed in clandestine literature and pamphlets from the 1650s into the 1720s, we look at the most radical free-thinking minds of their generation and probably of ours. So we look at Hobbes, who believed we're just sort of machines. We look at Spinoza, who was the first man to say, well, you know, actually the Bible is just a book. We think about how it's possible to conceive of politics without thinking about God. So these are the real free thinkers, the first Enlightenment minds. And again, you know, some people find their ideas challenged, but a lot of the time, and this is why I enjoy those sorts of courses, students themselves come up with brilliant new ideas. You know, I've been reading some of these books for 30 years. The students encountering them for the first time ask brilliant questions. And that's one of the beauties about this department. You know, we take the research tool into the teaching seminar. So any student that arrives at Royal Holloway in September, they're not just new, you know, ex-A level students, they're young historians. They're trained to think, to write and to sort of communicate as we would. They're just new at it. So we really privilege and encourage every student sort of engaging with the past for their own purposes. One of the very distinctive things is an emphasis on the public responsibilities of historians. So for a long time, historians, you know, sat in their offices and produced enormously learned books that 4 people read. In this department, we believe we've got a duty to not only communicate with our undergraduates, but to communicate with a much broader public. So almost everybody in the department is keen to engage either on television or on the radio or in journalism or in magazines with a much broader audience. And part of our challenge, and it's one we want our undergraduates to absorb because it's exceptionally good for getting a job later on, is the ability to communicate very complicated stuff, lots of analysis, lots of arguments, but to communicate it effectively and clearly to a very broad audience. So one of the themes that we've built in both to the undergraduate and now to a new postgraduate course is this emphasis on the ethical responsibilities of the historian to connect with publics. So we're as interested in your ability to write and to talk as to be able to read and sort of regurgitate our ideas. So it's about expressing your ideas in public.